twice today. They're doing it again right now.
Play fake to Newton in the corner.
And from there, the Dawgs did not look back. A 7th straight Apple Cup win for the Washington Huskies, the 10th time in the last 11 years. And Dawg fans now have bragging rights for another 12 months. As we welcome you into Apple Cup Game Day, Aaron Levine alongside former Huskies running back Terry Holloman and former Washington State receiver Michael Bumpus, who, bless his heart, has provided a fantastic obituary for the Cougs in the wake of Apple Cup defeat all of these years. Sorry for the loss again. Thanks for coming back.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming in. We're going to have a reaction from Husky Stadium coming up, including a heated exchange between Cougars coach Mike Leach and a reporter. But, Terry, the Cougs struck first today, and then the Huskies had their way for much of the rest of the game. What enabled them to do that?
You know, I think we alluded to it earlier this week in our show, the Talking Husky show. We've been talking about it for years and years and years. It's the fact that Mike Leach, the head coach of the Washington State Cougars, does not throw any change, any wrinkles, anything different in his plan every year that they play the Washington Huskies. The Huskies have the right formula defensively to stop that air raid defense. They rush 3 guys, sometimes they'll rush 4, and drop 7 to 8 guys in pass coverage, and that makes it tough for the quarterback. I don't care who it is. If you're trying to fit the ball into a window where there's 8 guys back there covering, it's hard to do.
There was a huge difference, as you're mentioning here, and you see it here, when Anthony Gordon had time to throw compared to when the Huskies got penetration along the line of scrimmage. Bump, simple question here. What went wrong this time? Do you agree with Terry?
Yeah, I agree with him 100%. It's very predictable. And even when you line it with 2 running backs and you do nothing with those running backs, you know one's going to swing right, one's going to swing left. You're not putting pressure on this defense, and you're not making them prepare for anything different. You know, they know that the Cougs are going to throw the ball 62 to 72 times a game, and they prepare for that. You drop 8, you put pressure on your quarterback to make every single throw, and sooner or later, he breaks down, and the guy who wins the line of scrimmage usually wins the game.
Listen, I know that there is a tolerance for Mike Leach and Pullman. They exceed expectations almost every single year. This coach has now lost 7 straight rivalry games by an average of more than 21 points. These games, as you mentioned, Terry, have been carbon copies of one another. Michael, how is that acceptable?
It really isn't. It isn't, is it? The thing I was talking about, Terry, earlier, it's hard to get guys to coach in Washington State, at Washington State. You're not going to get a big name, a marquee name to coach there, so you kind of got to live with what Leach is doing. He has won games. He has been successful. He just hasn't won the big one. So when you're a Washington State Cougar, when you're a Husky, end of the day, it comes down to this game. You go to your bowl games, you beat everybody else in the conference, but if you can't take home the Apple Cup, there's going to be problems. I'm just curious myself to how long is this going to be acceptable?
We're going to hear from the Husky players and also head coach Chris Peterson coming up. But one thing is for sure, Coach Leach let off some steam on a reporter after today's game. Let's take a quick look.
You're not supposed to beat teams that have higher ranked recruiting classes.
Well, we certainly have before. We didn't win this one, and I don't care to have a big discussion with you on it because I really don't care what you think.
Like playing with
you know, and you run your mouth in your little column and stuff like some sanctimonious troll, and where, you know, you've never been fair or even-handed with us, so I really don't care what you think. Okay, go ahead, because you're going to write some nasty stuff anyway, like you always do, and I don't know which Coug way back when did something that offended you, and I really don't care about that either, but you can live your little meager life in your little hole and write nasty things, and if that makes you feel even, you go right ahead. Okay, next.
We are going to have more from Mike Leach later in the show. That question, by the way, was why Washington State can't beat the Huskies despite having success against other teams with top 10 recruiting classes like they have throughout the years. I know they beat Oregon a number of times, came close again this year. What's your take on what we just saw, though?
I mean, I think it's just a guy, the frustration has just always gotten to him. Over the years, every year you hear that this team is able to beat other big programs in the conference, other big programs across the country, and they cannot beat the Huskies. I think if you hear that enough times, it's probably going to wear on you at a certain point, especially when you're the head guy, you're the last guy with the chalk in your hand, and everything's supposed to fall on your shoulders. It probably wore on him. I mean, especially right after the game, he didn't want to hear that right there.
Bump?
Yeah, that's a frustrated man right there. And I feel him. I'm right there with you, Leach. And when you get asked these questions, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? And you have the success that he's had over his career, he's like, you know what? I'm tired of hearing him. And I get you. I'm tired of hearing myself, Leach. I'm over here on the west side of Washington, and I deal with it with you. But end of the day, you haven't beat the Huskies, so you have to answer that question. This is a results-based business. You haven't been putting up the numbers.
On the other side, pretty complete game for the Huskies, including Jacob Eason, Richard Newton with 2 touchdown runs, Hunter Bryant becoming just the second tight end in school history to reach 50 catches in a single season. Did Mike Leach know that the Huskies had 2 of the best tight ends in the conference? And if so, did he just choose to ignore it?
I don't think he was watching film because, as you see, Hunter Bryant has been doing this all season long. He's been doing it for the last couple of seasons, and Cade Otton is not far behind him. You look at the production that these guys had today. They were the most productive guys on the field, the tight ends for the Washington Huskies. The wide receivers were basically invisible all game. These guys were the wide receivers, so I don't know what Mike Leach was watching all season.
Yeah, to me, it comes down to personnel. You look at this Washington State defense, they're not the biggest, they're not the fastest, they're not the strongest. It's easier to recruit to Seattle, so you're going to get guys like this. And I think it comes down to matchups. You're going to bring a safety on that tight end. You're going to bring another safety on that other tight end or a nickel. End of the day, they're undersized. Hunter Bryant is a baller. Those boys can play. So you got to be able to match up. At the end of the day, I think that's what it was.
Bryant and Cade Otton combining for 9 catches for 142 yards. We saw most of them in the first 3 quarters of today's game. Was this the last time you think we saw Jacob Eason play for the Washington Huskies?
I hope not. I was, as we were talking earlier while we were watching the game, we were saying that this is a great game for Eason to launch himself into the next level, to launch himself to the NFL. I think if we're looking at the games leading up to this, the Oregon State game and the Colorado game, it was questionable. We saw that we weren't sure what he was going to be able to do, bouncing back from poor games and making bad passes, but this may have been the last time. I hope it isn't, because I think there's a lot that he can build on personally and build on as far as legacy-wise with Washington if he comes back next year.
Yeah, 15 of 22, 244 yards and a touchdown for Jacob Eason. I mean, he only threw the ball 22 times. Anthony Gordon threw it 62 times. In fact, if you take a look at the box score of today's game, I was shocked because the Cougars actually had the ball close to 10 more minutes than the Huskies did. They a Mike Leach team won time of possession in the game by 10 minutes, and they lost 31-13. Is that possible?
We were trying to figure this out, right, Bump? How did they get that? It wasn't like they were just running the ball and ball control power offense. No, I think it was the fact that they were making those short passes, and the clock just kept running.
Yeah, the Huskies did exactly what they wanted to do. Keep everything in front of you. Allow the 5-yard catch. Allow the 6-yard catch. Rally to the football. Make Washington State receivers and running backs beat you with their feet. They just didn't do that. So when you get a 2nd and short, a 3rd and short, that clock is still running. It just wasn't efficient football on the end of the Washington State Cougars, and the Huskies did exactly what they wanted to do. Bend but don't break. Reminds me of a team down the road that practices in Renton, and it worked out in their favor.
Yeah, no doubt, because that first drive was 13 plays. The second scoring drive for the Cougs, 16 plays, and they had to settle for a field goal, and then the Huskies came right back, scored that go-ahead touchdown, and they never looked back from there.
And I think a lot of the time that we're talking about that the Cougars had the ball was Gordon backing up, running around, scrambling. He spent probably 20 minutes of the game scrambling, looking for somebody to throw the ball to.
Okay, let's head back out to Husky Stadium. Michelle Ludka standing by with Miles Bryant.
Congratulations on the win today. You guys kept the Cougar offense to just 1 touchdown. What did you guys do on defense to shut them down?
It just started with our preparation. Throughout the week, even during the offseason, we just prepared hard. We understood what they were going to come out and do, and then it just translated to game day.
What is it like being amongst all of this? The trophies right over your shoulder, knowing that for yet another year you guys beat the Cougs?
Like I said, it's just a credit to our preparation. A lot of guys in this locker room have never lost, so that's something only a few guys can say, so it's pretty special.
You've talked earlier this week and the past couple of years about how not originally being from here, but adapting to this rivalry and seeing it up close and personal. What is so special about this rivalry?
It's a cross-state rivalry. Coming up, I didn't know much about it, but as I started to enroll in this school and really get through my freshman season, I saw the meaning of the Apple Cup, and this past 4 years, my experience as a Husky has been amazing, as well as the Apple Cup.
This senior class goes down in history as the winningmost senior class in all of the University of Washington football teams. Knowing that you're a part of history and you're leaving Washington, what does it feel like to know that you're leaving your legacy with this special group of young men?
Oh yeah, it feels great. Came into this program with a lot of guys who kind of pushed us. They pushed this senior class from the moment we got here to the end. But the thing about this program is I think the next few senior classes will keep winning and winning, and they'll break that record. So I'm excited to see what this program has in the future.
Miles, congratulations. Go celebrate your team.
Thank you.
And Miles Bryant parading around Husky Stadium with a sign that said, I ain't ever lost to no Cougs. And that, of course, is true. Then again, on the other side, you have Cougs who have never beat the Washington Huskies, and they're going to have to go their entire lives hearing about it, aren't they?
Yeah, and I feel bad for those guys, man. You know, thankfully, I've been on the other end of this thing. I'm 3-1 against the Huskies. But that means a lot. It means a lot to this state. And as a California guy, I'm a California guy. When you come to the state of Washington, you don't really know what the Apple Cup means until you're in it. So now I feel bad for those guys who are 0-4 against them. Big ups to the Huskies, man. They've done exactly what they're supposed to do. They've been the dominant team over the years. All you can do is keep your head up, move on, and take your next step in life for those seniors.
Terry, you're 2-2 against the Cougs all time, but you're very quick to say you're 3-2 if you include your redshirt year.
Yeah, include that first year that I didn't play. Honestly, here's the truth. The first year that I didn't play, I was redshirting. I hadn't played the entire season, and that was the game that I talked the most trash in. I knew I wasn't going to play a single down, but I was out there yapping and chipping. So, yeah, I'll claim that one, too. It's 3-2 for me.
Yeah, very cool, and you had a chance to raise that Apple Cup trophy as the Huskies did after a 31-13 win over the Washington State Cougars. You take a look here. The Huskies now leading the all-time series 74-32-6. A great day for Harry the Husky and, of course, the players on the Washington Huskies raising that trophy for a 7th consecutive time. We'll be back with more, including reaction from head coach Chris Peterson at the podium at Husky Stadium next on Apple Cup Game Day. Back here on Apple Cup Game Day, following a Huskies 31-13 win over the Cougs in the 112th edition of the rivalry game. Let's head back out to Husky Stadium. Head coach Chris Peterson addressing the media after a Huskies win.
What do you see from Jacob just in terms of being able to bounce back today?
Yeah. I thought we took a step forward there. You know, he was able to set his feet a little bit and threw some good balls. And, yeah, I thought there was a step forward. We still had one. You know, it's hard to miss those ones that are really open that are going to maybe score, but there was progress there. And, you know, that's what it's about. It's about progress and improvement. I thought he took a step.
Well, thank you guys for so much success going through tight ends.
Well, we got good tight ends. I think it starts with that. And when you got good players, you know, at certain positions, you need to figure out ways to get them the ball. And, you know, sometimes that play action game, we try to slam the ball in there, and you can slip the tight ends behind the linebackers and, you know, let them make plays.
What does it do to your defense when you're able just to run three, you know, attack with three players and effectively?
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard on that D-line. I mean, we always say it starts with the lines, right? I mean, it's going to start with our O-line. It's going to start with our D-line. And, you know, those guys are rushing three so often. It can get frustrating, it can get hard, it can get tiresome. But to get some sacks, you know, get some sacks, you know, rushing three and mixing it up a little bit. I think we got him 5 times, which is humongous. They don't give up many sacks at all, which is, you know, another credit to those guys and that scheme that they have to throw it that much and not give up sacks. But for our guys to get there today, that was a big part of the game.
Series, you enlarged your defensive backfield. Did I read that right?
What's that?
Put another DB out there after the first series?
We play 6, 7 DBs. I mean, we'll do that on occasion, and certainly when they're going to throw it every down and, you know, play 5 wideouts with the running back being one of them. So that was really nothing that new.
Speaking of DBs, you guys have been so high on Trent McDuffie, and for the game he had today, how big is that for him?
Yeah, I mean, we've been saying it all along. I mean, the kid is as solid as a rock as a person. You know, like I said, the moment is never too big. He comes from some of the best football in the West. He's super well coached coming in here, and Coach Lake and Coach Harris done a great job with him. And you knew it was just a matter of time for him to show up and make some game-changing plays. And, you know, even last week when there was a touchdown score, I mean, he was right there. You know, the other guy made a great play, and you tip your hat and move on. But he's a heck of a player, and he's only going to get better.
In previous WSU games, you guys have piled up a lot of rushing yards, but you came out throwing this time. What influenced you to decide that game?
Yeah, and again, I kind of always say this. It's like, okay, we'll take what they're going to give us and maybe where some of our matchups are. I think it's no secret that everybody's going to put about, 11 guys about 8 inches or 8 yards from the ball and pack it in there, and we still got to try to run it a little bit. And if they were going to do that, then we were going to have to hit some plays downfield, and so that happened today. And that's the only way to operate if you're going to run that style, is you're going to have to hit some big plays downfield. And that's been a little bit of our problem in the past, is they pack them in there, and we're not running the ball real efficiently, but if you can't throw it, then you got big problems. We threw a little bit today, and that helped.
About maybe confidence lacking a little bit in big spots this year. Do you sense any greater confidence when this game rolls around? Just some history.
I don't think it's greater confidence, but what I do think is I think those kids played like they need to play and like we're capable of playing, in terms of like it's going to expect it to go 4 quarters. You got to go earn it in the fourth quarter. You got to go win it in the fourth quarter. And don't expect it to all go good because we have a W on the side of our helmet, And I just think there was just a little bit of that at times this year, where it's like, I've been saying it forever, there's tremendous parity in this league. And I really think if you don't show up and grind them out, you're going to get beat. And I felt like the mentality was where it needed to be today.
You held them with 13 points, 8 tackles for losses, 5 sacks. Your defensive backs played pretty well, but what's going through your mind when their quarterback has a lot of time to throw like he did at times?
Yeah, but it's not about yards, it's about points. And so you're going to have to give that up, and you're going to have to be patient and let them keep, doing those things. And then you got to strike when you can and hold them out of the end zone and make them kick a field goal and sack them when you can and knock them back. And I thought our guys on defense executed to a T, because it is hard, and then he runs around, and those, there's a lot of energy on those D linemen rushing 3 and can get frustrating. But I thought they did a great job, because, again, it is about points. It's not about how many yards you throw for. It's not even about time of possession, which they got us pretty good there. And in the first half, it's kind of hard when they're holding the ball so much, and you're thinking, man, we don't have a lot of margin for error. We better score when we get the ball back. But that's what I was kind of saying. I thought it was good team ball today, that our offense was efficient enough, to score the points we need to. Our defense stopped them. They were kind of holding the ball and up and down the field, but it's about points.
They don't do anything different. They are what they are. Same defensive game plan? Did Jimmy just dust it off from the last couple
Well,
years?
there's some similarities. We've played them for a long time, and so there's a lot of things that we've had success in the past with that we certainly did again. And there's a couple little wrinkles in there for sure. Everybody's got a few, but for the most part, it's similar.
Kirkland close to getting back for this game?
He was, but probably if it's pro football, I don't know, you might play, not in college football. We'll get him back for, hopefully for the bowl. He made really good progress this week, and, there was an outside chance, but wasn't worth it.
What does your guys' schedule look like going forward these next couple weeks?
We don't really know yet. The kids will have this week off, and we'll do something next weekend, just to, not get too rusty, and then figure out what it looks like.
Good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys.
And we'll take a look at those bowl possibilities for both the Huskies and the Cougs going forward, as that was Chris Peterson addressing the media following an Apple Cup win over the Cougs. Jimmy Lake was not made available. Actually, he decided not to show up to post-game interviews, unlike last year, where he pretty much ripped Mike Leach for doing the same thing every single year for the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. That was said last year, and Mike Leach then said, I don't know who Jimmy Lake is. He's got to know who Jimmy Lake is now after getting beat this many times, right?
I'm sure he does. Sure he does. He might have a Jimmy Lake tattoo somewhere. I think Jimmy Lake probably didn't show up to the press conference after the game because, the old adage goes, everybody's mom told him, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything. That's what he chose to do. He chose not to be there and not say anything. So, again, probably just to avoid some controversy, there was probably a lot of lead up to the game between the things that, Jimmy Lake said last year and probably left a bad taste in the mouth of Washington State Cougar coaches for sure. So, yeah, he just probably took it to the locker room.
Well, and Peterson said that there were similarities to what they've seen all year long when it comes to the Cougs. The question, though, it begs the question, at least, how do you change? If you are Mike Leach, and okay, there are a couple wrinkles, but when you do things a certain way every single time, you can't completely be expected to mix it up 100% and take a complete 180, can you?
No, if he was going to mix anything up, he would have done it during the regular season somehow. The Huskies have weeks and weeks of film of what they like to do. And Mike Leach, he has contributed to the game of football in so many ways. He's changed the game. Guys are spreading out, they're throwing the ball around, and sometimes you just get caught in your ways. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks sometimes, and I think that's the case with Leach. What I like to see out of him, give me more formations. Use your backs differently. You got two backs, man. Run a power game. Do something different to make them prepare for it. Obviously, he didn't do that. Jimmy didn't show up. He didn't need to show up. The defense did exactly what they're supposed to do.
I kind of disagree with that a little bit, and this is why I say you have a running back in Max Borghi. This is a guy that's been averaging 7.1 yards per carry all season long. He has shown the ability that he can carry this team as far as a running back goes. Yeah. Why not turn around and hand him the ball 15, 20, 25 times and at least keep the Huskies defense honest? Instead of dropping 8 guys back every single time, let him do some things and then keep the defense honest.
And look at their first drive. Max Borghi touched the ball how many times in that first drive? Finished the game with 50 rushing yards. Then again, the Cougs finished the game with 31 total rushing yards as a team.
Yeah, he touched the ball 6 times during that first drive. And that kind of scared me. I'm like, you got to take care of this guy. He makes your offense go. So you don't want to run him down to the ground. And I think once you figured out that they're going to give it to Max every single time, then you become predictable. It's all about keeping the defense on their heels, and that just didn't happen. And you cannot expect one man to beat a football team. There's 11 guys on that football field. You need to use at least 6 or 7 of them on the outside.
Let me take a look at more highlights from today's game. Max Borghi with the declarative statement after last week's win over Oregon State that he was going to come into today's game and score a lot. He did score that very first touchdown and seemed fired up after that. But then the Huskies had his number.
Well, it was obvious that the Huskies used that statement as bulletin board material all week. Max Borghi was going to score touchdowns after touchdowns, and so he thought. And you could see even after the times that Max got the ball and was carrying it in the first half, the Huskies were a little chippy. They seemed like they were a little fired up when they were going after him. So, sometimes, like I said in Talking Huskies earlier this week, when you talk that talk, sometimes you got to back that thing up. And so, unfortunately for the Cougars, they weren't able to back it up this time. Maybe next year.
We'll see. We're going to keep bringing Bumpus back, and hopefully he'll one of these years be able to talk about a Cougars win in Apple Cup. Let's head back to Husky Stadium, and Nick Harris catching up with our Michelle Ludka.
Before the game at halftime, does it just feel different for you guys?
Obviously it's a rivalry. It means a lot. But for the most part, it stays the same. We go in there, we make our adjustments, and we try to, we finish. We got to, just got to finish, and we made it happen. Defense came up huge. We came out, scored on offense. Hats off to the defense. They played exceptional against a high-power offense, and we made plays and came out with a W.
So 9 rushing yards in that first quarter. What changed as that game went on?
I think we started taking what they were giving us. They know that we were going to roll them up front. Their D tackle was 250, so that they got to move, they got to bring down safeties, they got to play with a pack box, and that's what they did, and that's when we started throwing bombs over their head, and that's when we stared scoring. So we just had to take what they gave us. We can't force anything on offense. So I think we did a good job, making adjustments and making plays on the perimeter.
Things really changed after that first series that they had.
Yeah,
it seemed like the momentum just completely shifted.
Yeah.
What were you thinking after the first series? Because they went down the field pretty fast.
I have full faith in our defense all the time. It's been that way for the last 4 years, and they came up huge. They made their adjustments, and you see how they played. Elijah Moden played, amazing. Joe played well. They all played well. So I wasn't tripping at all.
What was the inspiration for the phrasing on your shirt?
It's just truth. No inspiration. It's just truth. I'm a truthful person. I like to keep it real, and that's kind of what I did on my shirt.
What struck you today to want to put it on there?
Like I said, it's truth. I haven't lost. We don't lose. Nobody in that locker room has lost to the Cougars. It's just truth. It's the way it is.
When did you write that?
Yesterday. And I wore it this morning, and I wore it in the game, and I'm wearing it now. I'll probably wash it because it's pretty sweaty. But if I could, I'd wear it all night. But I might make a new one.
And the sign on Nick Harris's shirt, pretty much the same thing that the sign that Miles Bryant was holding at Husky Stadium after the game saying, we don't lose to Cougars. Elijah Molden, he mentioned, and he finished with 12 tackles in today's game. What kind of performance did we see from number 3?
I mean, I think he's just shown every week after week, he's getting better and better. He's just so ferocious when it comes to tackling. He's a hard hitter. His fundamentals are sound. He's one of the better defensive backs in the Pac-12, and I think it's just, and we're just going to see the way he continues to progress as an athlete at this Washington Husky defense.
Yeah, he diagnoses plays. He looks like a confident guy. He knows what he's seeing, and he believes in it. And when you have a guy out there who's leading the way, who's sniffing out screens, who's making open field plays like that, and picking the ball away, I mean, it's contagious. Guys feed off of that. It's a rivalry game. It's the Apple Cup. He's making plays. He's talking to his boys. There's Chippy out there. All that stuff, it accumulates, it builds up, and then you see the result.
Terry, we talked a lot about the linebackers and whether they'd be able to step up in today's game. All throughout the season, they've struggled at times. Brandon Wellington finished today's game with 12 solo tackles, 16 total tackles, and your boy, the freshman, Ulufushio, finishing with 12 total tackles in today's game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a matter of what Washington State Cougars were doing or what they were trying to do to the Washington Huskies. They weren't trying to be downhill, smash mouth football, which we've seen through this season. If you followed the Huskies, those are the teams that the Huskies have had most trouble with when the guys were coming downhill at them. What they were doing was keeping all the plays in front of them. That was their motto this weekend versus the Cougars, to keep the plays in front of them and make solid tackles. And fortunately for the Huskies, they had a better day tackling this day than they've had in recent days than we've seen. And I think with the linebackers, we saw that.
Well, we saw the Husky perspective following a 31-13 win in Apple Cup. Up next, we're going to hear from some of the Cougar players inside the Cougs locker room following their loss in Apple Cup. That's next on Apple Cup Game Day. Back here on Apple Cup Game Day, earlier in the show, the top of the show actually, we heard from a defiant Mike Leach who got into a heated exchange with John Blanchette of the Spokesman Review. Here's more from the Mike Leach postgame press conference following a 31-13 win by the Huskies over the Cougs in Apple Cup.
Both sides of the ball? I think so. I think we go out there and we try to make too much happen, and I think that we try to make too much happen. I think that the game's meaningful to us, and then as we do that, we get out over our skis, we overcorrect, we try to do too much, and all of a sudden it's a frantic effort, which it's hard to execute when you do it that way.
Your first possession, you guys protected fantastic, at all time with the throw, and then kind of changed afterwards. Do you have any idea why it changed?
Well, I think again, I think that we did force some stuff. We didn't get separation at times, and then our tackles had trouble with their ends.
Do you think there's anything mental to this for your team now, or do you think they don't see it?
I think the Huskies are pretty good. I think they deserve some credit for that. I don't think it's necessarily, it's probably maybe a combination of both,
One thing that's been consistent over the years too, you guys haven't scored a lot of points against the Huskies. Jimmy Lake has been on record saying they don't adjust.
Well, I think this was probably a team effort by the Huskies. I think it was a team effort by the Huskies. I know he always likes to take a lot of credit for everything, but I would say those other Huskies played a very important role as well. And I think that the other thing is they've loaded the NFL with defensive players, and they're one of the finest defenses in our conference.
Anything else for Coach?
How much does it hurt not having Brandon Arconado there? Obviously left in the first quarter.
Yeah, it hurts a little. He's a really good player, but I think those other guys are good players too.
It seemed to use Dez a little bit more than you saw today. Was that a plan coming in, or
well, we played them evenly. Dez caught a few more balls. Yeah.
That's Cougars coach Mike Leach, who just couldn't help himself in taking that subtle shot at Huskies defensive coordinator Jimmy Lake.
Yeah, he gave him a little dig there. It was, it's well deserved. He gave him a little bit last year, so he had to give him a little bit this year. So yeah, it was good. I just, I love Mike Leach. He's always good for the soundbite, but he just needs to do something about his game play calling when it comes to the Huskies every year.
Yeah, it's been rough, and when you lose like this, you got to take a shots when you can get them. So, Mike Leach, I ain't mad at you. At least you win the press conference game. But,
He usually does.
Yeah, he's good at that. He's good at that.
Well, and he also mentioned, and he didn't want to make any excuses for Brandon Arconato not playing most of that game. How much do you think it hurt the Cougs on offense?
It definitely hurt. When you lose a guy who's a contributor, it does something to your offense. You stop believing a little bit, and you depend on that next guy who's up, and everyone can play. You know the saying in football. It's always the next guy up, but your next guy isn't as good as the first guy, or else he'd be the first guy. So it affects your offense a bit. It does something to your spirits, but the good programs, the good teams find a way to bounce back from that.
Your quick thought, do you think Leach is back next year? I know there have been rumors about him going to other schools.
I hope he's back, and I think he's back.
Okay. Yeah. Let's head back to Husky Stadium. Our Michelle Lutka catching up with Chico McClatcher.
Chico, you're a senior here at the University of Washington, been with this program for years now. How does it feel to be closing out your last year on Montlake with a win over the Cougs?
Oh, it feels good, man. This year, this game, we had to do it for the seniors. The young guys helped us out, get this W, and it feels great just to leave out on a good note with all my family and friends, and it's a blessing.
What worked well for your team today?
Oh, we just started fast on both sides. Offense, defense played well. Special teams was a huge factor in it too. That's what Coach P said. We just had to finish out games, and that's what we did today.
With the win today, your senior class will be going down as the winningmost senior class in UW history. What does it mean to you to be part of history here at Washington?
It means a lot, man. It means a lot, man. We've had alumni come talk to us that we never lose to the Cougs. And this senior class, we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this program, and it feels good just to leave on a high note.
Congratulations on the win. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Chico McClatcher playing his final game as a Husky at Husky Stadium, at least. Yes. They got another bowl game. In fact, as we look ahead to the bowl game scenario, where would you like to see the Huskies play?
I would like to see the Huskies play somewhere warm. It'll give me an excuse to get somewhere and get some sun.
Holiday Bowl?
Holiday Bowl would be my number one choice. San Diego this time of year in December is great. But anywhere they go is going to be fine for these guys. They're going to get the extra 15 practices in. They're going to get some experience, going to get a little reward for all the hard work they've done this season. So anywhere they go is going to be good.
Despite the loss in Apple Cup, Cougs also got a bowl game.
We got a bowl game. Be some bowl game no one really cares about, no one heard about. But it is what it is. Hey, at least they're playing. At least they got something to play for. They're going nice little trips. They'll get a little packs of goodies and stuff. So, hey, you didn't win the Apple Cup, but you're still playing football. A lot of guys are going home.
So you're saying we're not going to see you in El Paso for the Sun Bowl?
You will definitely not see me in El Paso.
I'm getting ready.
Yeah, keeping it real. Oh, at the Sun Bowl. I mean, that was where it snowed the last time you were there. I know Terry's ready for a Holiday Bowl in San Diego.
I'm ready for the sun and fun, baby. My future is so bright. I got to wear shades right now as a Husky.
Yeah, you feel good about that, huh?
I'm feeling good, man. We looking good right now.
For the record, I asked Terry Holloman if he would take a 10-2 record at the beginning of the season. He said, no, I want to see this thing play out. Take those sunglasses
I'll take it back now.
We're going to have much more coming up next on Apple Cup Game Day, including a live report from Michelle Lutka at Husky Stadium. Back here on Apple Cup Game Day after the Huskies beat the Cougs 31-13 in the 112th edition of the Apple Cup. Not a total loss for the Cougs today, however, because their women's soccer team reaching the Final Four, the College Cup. So congratulations to the Cougs making history, school history in that one. Let's head back to Husky Stadium. Our Michelle Lutka standing by. And Michelle, this was a really special day for the Husky seniors. You spoke with a lot of them after today's game.
I did, Aaron. Obviously, it's great for the senior class. They end their time on Montlake undefeated against the Washington State Cougars, obviously winning the last 4 years. The win tonight makes it 7 straight for the Huskies, which is very interesting because this is a rivalry, obviously, that's been going on for 12 decades. You mentioned it's the 112th Apple Cup. And prior to today's Apple Cup, there were only 2 other times in the entire rivalry's history that have had longer winning streaks for the Huskies. Like I said, today makes it 7 straight for the Huskies. Previously, there were 2 8-straight streaks. That was back in 1959 to 1966 and 1974 to 1981. So it was really special what this Husky program is doing here on Montlake right now, not just for the Husky seniors, but for the entire class. As for those seniors, by them getting the win tonight, that group of players now have 39 total wins across their 4 years here at the University of Washington, which makes them the most winning senior class ever in the history of this school, which is really neat. And I talked to a lot of the players about it, and they expressed how special of a group this is and how Chris Peterson has done such a wonderful job really instilling the belief and so much more into them to make them not only great football players, but great people off the field as well. And that they're really going to miss their time in Montlake, but that they couldn't be more happy to be going down in the record books. It's something really neat. And then you think about the bowl game. This could be 40 wins total if they win the bowl game for this senior class, and that's something very special, Aaron.
And you made a very good point right there, Michelle, in that Terry, they have something to play for now. 40 total wins, especially for the senior class, to walk away from this school with that many wins.
That's huge. That's an incredible legacy you're leaving at the University of Washington. When you think about the incredible players and the incredible teams that have gone through Montlake, you think about a national championship team in 1991 and all the great players that have come through that program and gone on and played in the National Football League and have their name etched in Husky lore. This is the most winning team in Husky history. I think that's a huge thing, Aaron.
And going back to Pullman next year for Apple Cup, how do you make sure that it doesn't snow next year like it did last year? Because that was the reason you lost last year, right, Mike?
Lots of prayer.
Okay.
Lots of prayer. just pray and just play some defense. It comes down to it. Play defense, put points on the board, and pray that God's bless us with great weather.
Max Borghi had some heated words after today's game. We're going to hear from him coming up on the flip side here on Seahawks Game Day. That's coming up on Monday night against the Minnesota Vikings. Apple Cup Game Day following a 31-13 win for the Huskies.
Whether you're a Husky or a Cougar, we are all Seahawks fans, and we have stories about your favorite players you won't see anywhere else. A breakout rookie receiver, DK Metcalf, recovered from an injury that almost ended his ability to play football. Offensive lineman DJ Fluker narrowly escaped 2 deadly natural disasters growing up. And the Seahawks motivate a Green Beret to get back on the battlefield. A half-hour special, Seahawks Off the Field, coming up tonight at 6 o'clock right here on Q13 Fox.
And looking forward to seeing Matt Leach with his stories coming up in about 12 minutes from now. Back here on Apple Cup Game Day, though. And Max Borghi made a declarative statement last week after the win over Oregon State that he was going to score a lot against the Huskies today. He scored once early on, and then that was pretty much it. Here's what he had to say after the Apple Cup loss for the Cougs.
Obviously pissed off. This is a big game for us, and what happened tonight and today was not what we expected, not what we wanted, so we weren't happy.
Similar to last year's game in a lot of respects as far as being able to move on offense and then kind of bringing only 3 guys and dropping 8 and everything they do.
Yeah, they played us near the same. I just felt like offensively we left a lot of plays on the field, and it was evident that's what killed us today. Interceptions, sacks, fumbles. You can't have that. With that, you can't win a game. It's not going to be easy.
Max, does this seem like a different... Does your team seem like a different team against Washington?
To an extent, I feel like guys hype this game up more than they should. It's just another game. It's a regular game, but a lot of guys like to, it's Washington, but it's like, I don't know. I just feel like as a team we could do a better job just playing the next play and then just playing football. A lot of guys get tight and antsy out there, it seems like, and it shows.
What's the secret to maybe not overhyping this game, staying out of your head?
I don't know if there is a secret. It's just don't be soft, I guess. There's really no secret. It's no different than any other game. It's just another game.
Do you think there is something mental with this game in your team, especially since you guys have struggled against them over the years?
I'm not sure. I know for me personally, it's just another game, and I'm not going to look at them as any significant team more than any other team. maybe for some guys, it felt like it out there today a little bit. Obviously, the way we performed was not how we can perform. We're a lot better than what we played today.
That's Max Borgi. I'm going to come straight to you, Bump. Your reaction on those words?
You know what? I am glad that he's upset, but he will soon realize that the Apple Cup is a big deal. I believe it's from Colorado. He hasn't really bought into it. The way he handled this whole situation, you never give the team bulletin board material. I was taught Coach Tom Salter in Culver City, California, that you praise the opponent. You praise them. Now, when you're with your boys, you're in the locker room, you let them know, hey, we're going to smack these dudes. But you don't give them any extra motivation. I'm glad he's upset. End of the day, just taking on the chin, young man, and he'll learn. He's a sophomore. He's young.
Terry?
I don't know. He was sitting there looking like he wanted to stop, collaborate, and listen, looking like Vanilla Ice sitting in there with his hat turned backwards and whatnot. No, go for real, Mr. Borgi, if you want to keep doing it, keep on doing it. Next year, the Huskies will have more bulletin board material to look at. They'll have this to look at for 364 days. Again, like Mr. Bumpus said, you know, when you're at, especially if after a game that you've lost, you congratulate your opponent. You know, they were the better opponent today. We're going to go back to the drawing board. You don't go out there and say things like this game doesn't matter, because we know at the state of Washington, this game is a big deal. So you can't do that.
You know, the Cougs took a 10-7 lead after that second long drive, 16 plays. And then from that point until halftime, the Cougs ran 7 plays. 3 of them were sacks. 1 of them was an interception. I mean, that was a huge difference in that first half and the momentum swinging to Washington's side.
Yeah, momentum is real. I mean, you jump out on a team like the University of Washington, a good football team, you got to keep it going. You give them any chance of hope, they're going to jump on you. And it's all about sustainability. And that's what hurts me with the scheme is I don't think the scheme, you can sustain a long drive or games with this scheme because you become predictable. So it's an emotional game. And I think that's what the Cougs had an advantage of. They hopped out on top of them early because they're emotional. But we all know emotions only last about a series or two. And then it comes down to X's and O's, alignment, assignment, executing, and UW just did a better job today.
On the other side of the break, we will have final thoughts from our crack analysts right here, Terry Holloman and Michael Bumpus, following a 31-13 Huskies win over the Cougs in Apple Cup. Back here on Apple Cup Game Day, and as we take a look ahead, the bowl games await both teams, the Huskies and the Cougs. I want to show you a graphic of all the potential bowl games these two teams could be going to. We talked a little bit about that Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl potentially for the Cougs. A good trivia question, by the way, is what color is Tony the Tiger's nose?
Blue.
It's blue. I never knew that before.
I didn't either. This now.
Okay, that's a small one. What do you think?
Again, I'm pressing for the Holiday Bowl for the Huskies. I think it's a big game for them. You know, a nice, I don't want to call it a consolation, but if you can't go to the Rose Bowl, you can't go to the playoffs, the Holiday Bowl is the next best place you want to be.
Yeah, if they're not going to the Holiday Bowl, I'll take Vegas all day. Me and my wife vacation there every year. We love Vegas. I like it.
What are the states of the program right now in general? How do you feel about this team? Because obviously the expectation was much greater for the Huskies going into the year, and they finished 7-5.
Well, I think the Huskies absolutely had a stumbling block this year. This season, going 6-5 is not where they wanted to be. They had so much potential, but I do think this win gives them something to build on for sure.
Bob?
Yeah, no, I think the Cougs, this is the cycle of being a Coug fan. You don't get the top recruits. Every now and then you get a special class that does something special. You just got to hit recruiting harder, and it's all about rebuilding. Every 3 or 4 years, you strike gold and have a good recruiting class. This year, it just didn't happen for us.
Hopefully Mike Leach not making the same excuses after an Apple Cup next year and breaking that loss streak of 7 in this rivalry game. Again, a look, well, hopefully not for you guys, a look at the Apple Cup trophy being presented. The Huskies now all-time with the Cougs, 74-32-6, 7 straight wins in Apple Cup, 10 of the last 11. Time to celebrate for Husky fans following a 31-13 win over the Cougs. For Michael Bumpus, Terry Holloman, and Michelle Ludka, I'm Aaron Levine. We'll see you later tonight.